Welcome to the Meta One Coin Report, exploring the world of private digital currency through the eyes of human rights and empowerment for humanity. Here's your host, Leanne Carroll.
Is an award-winning musician, a filmographer. He's been featured on the History Channel as a UFO experiencer. He's involved in Star Knowledge Movement, formerly led by the late Chief Golden Light Eagle. He's a Meta One coin holder and a supportive member of the movement from the very beginning. His name is Michael Lee Hill. He's here to join us and discuss the ways that he has learned about frequency, light, and so much more. Please welcome to the program, Michael Lee Hill.
Peace. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Now, Michael, there is so much to talk about. And Meta One is a difference maker. We are creating change in the monetary system, and you are doing the same thing in many other ways when it comes to sound, frequency, healing, that sort of thing. And the work that you're doing with the 432 frequency, how you're charging water, working with universities, there's so much to talk about. It wasn't very long ago that I had Richard with Richard's Living Water on the show, talking about structured water and how it benefits the body, what the water of our planet needs. And it was very, very enlightening. And I feel like this can sort of dovetail into additional knowledge from there. So that's kind of some tracks that I'd like to take and some of the exciting things that you provide so that people can do these. They can charge their water and charge their light at home. And so how did you...
By the way, I love Richard. He's such a cool guy. And I'm supportive of his work in, anyone that is doing anything to help water, hallelujah. Because water is not what we've been taught it is. It's alive and it has memory. And, I hope your audience is familiar with Dr. Emoto. If not, look into his work. But it's very good that people like Richard and I and others now are learning to respect the water, It's life.
It is. And it's just like all the other elements of the earth. They're all alive. This entire closed system is alive. And it is a closed system, but it's so much more.
I totally agree.
So how did you hear about Meta One from the beginning?
I was speaking on a cruise ship. It was like a special Meta One
gathering
inside group. And that's when I met Robert, and we just hit it off, man. I still, to this day, I think he's just a cool individual. And, some of the subject, I'm very naive in the subject. And so I told him, I said, man, don't be offended, but man, I don't understand cryptocurrency, or anything about it. So he walked me through it like, I'm like, dude, just tell me like I'm a kindergartner. And he's got a way of being able to explain things and in a way that I could understand. And I said, well, it's still a little bit over my head, but anything that is going to get us away from the Federal Reserve and that slavery system that they've got mankind under, I'm all for it. So, that's how I came across Meta One. That was maybe a few years ago.
Very good. And you're doing your part in the enslavement of humanity as far as education goes, sound, frequency, using your musician skills.
I'm doing all I can.
Where do we start? I would like to start with the 432 frequencies, your disc, the work that you're doing with that. And I'm going to show a 432 frequency disc to the audience that's looking in. It is a cymatic pattern of, I'm guessing, water on top of a cymatoscope. And when the frequency is placed, the water makes its form and did you add the colors?
Yes, actually, originally it's just blue. And I'm actually working on doing a version of that because since it's water, I want to make a water bearer disc. But anyhow, what had happened was they said you can choose any colors, the scientists did. And I said, let's use the human chakra system from, because this gets into what I learned from the Native American Indian First Nation grandmothers, is what rainbow truly signifies is, well, before I even get into that, I'll say what the colors are is red in the outside rim to purple on the inside. And the 7 colors of the rainbow are incorporated into the design then of the 432 frequency. And what had happened was I met a Native American First Nation elder. His name is Bear Cloud, and he happened to be very inspired and guided into the 7-pointed star. But in that book, I had learned that many of the elders believe that once you've went through your ascension, or truly it means that you've cleaned your chakras, because that's what I learned from the grandmother. She said, I was given the name Rainbow Warrior Eagle as my spiritual Native American First Nation name. And she said, you are the rainbow we've been waiting for, that the chakras emit light, but only when they're clean and balanced and spinning freely. And she said, each chakra emits the colors of the rainbow, from red in the root to purple in the crown. And only when they're free and balanced do they emit light. And she told me that only once you've been deemed rainbow by spirit, which they vet you, they, as in people upstairs, to see if you're a clean vessel, and it's not easy because fear wears many masks. But anyhow, she said, to those of us that have the gift of sight, you have become the whirling rainbow. So the chakras and the rainbow are intertwined into, they mean the same thing to the Native American Indian culture. Interestingly enough, even in the Tibetan culture, they call it obtaining the rainbow body through meditation. And truly, it's each one of us can become rainbow. That's why I love the idea of this going forward, as it's not even a religion. You know what I mean? It's like everyone can become rainbow. It doesn't matter whether you're female, male, whatever race you are, it doesn't matter. And it's very important to me because you know what? We are each going to have our own journey to becoming rainbow. We all have our own baggage, and that stuff needs to be cleared and cleaned, because what they told me was for spirit and manifestation ability, it's only granted once you've been deemed rainbow or your chakras have been deemed clean. Said, for instance, if you got 6 of your 7 chakras clean and they're all just radiating light, but you're, say the root chakra is still dark. And if all of a sudden spirit granted you all this extra manifestation ability, more than likely you're going to go what you still have a fear stamp on and manifest the heck out of it. It's not going to end well. So they told me, well, spirit's smarter than that. That when you have become rainbow, that then your prayers go to source with great enthusiasm. I like that. But so that's the coloring of it and why. I know that's a little bit more detailed info. But with Bear Cloud, he said that once we go through that process of becoming rainbow, that our chakras flip. That now red isn't in the root. It's purple in the root, but they're superimposed. So it just becomes a whirling rainbow around that person. And so there's actually 2 different versions of that disc. That's not it. Actually, you're not going to be able to see it anyhow, but instead of the disc you just held up is red on the outside and purple on the inside, there's another variation that is purple on the outside and red on the inside, because it's almost like a push and a pull through the Stargate into higher realms of consciousness.
Yeah, I look at it as the hourglass. Once you go to the center, you're moving to the other side.
I like that.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of study on these discs and the 432 frequency that is embedded in the light.
Yeah. Crazy with that, because what happened, well, I can tell I'm in contact with the beings that are known as the Anunnaki. And they guided me into what they called cosmic harmonious frequencies, which all led to 432 and the connection of 432 to the seven-pointed star. What happens is if you go 4 octaves below 432, which is 27 hertz, and you put that frequency through a cymatic device, scientific, it creates a perfect seven-pointed star. So
interesting. Go ahead and say what a cymatic pattern is.
cymatics is a brand new science of making the invisible visible. It makes frequency visible for the first time. And it started off in the 50s. Some people might have seen like where they would have a big round plate and they'd sprinkle sand on it and have a bow, and they'd be like, yeah. But the whole thing is tuned to a very specific frequency. Well, what they found was when they hit specific frequencies, specific geometry would form. And it wasn't random. Every time you hit specific frequencies, this specific geometry forms. Well, that's now evolved till they have a huge vat of water, and it's in a tripod where it's totally like there's no other vibrations getting to it. And then simply they have a waveform generator attached to it, so they can pump any frequency through the water, and they have a super high-tech camera system that's recording what's happening on the surface of the water, due to the frequency. And so what happened was through this guidance and understanding, 432 to the seven-pointed star and whatnot, as you said, I'm a musician more so than that's my first love. And now I'm understanding why. But I recorded 20 seconds of my guitar recorded in my studio. I was just very meticulous about making sure it was tuned properly. So I sent these scientists this sound file. It was only 20 seconds. It's just me going, boom, 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 nothing fancy, But what happened then is they took my 20-second sound file I sent them of my A note on my guitar tuned to 432 hertz, and they put it through a cymoscope and imaged it for me. And that's what you just showed. I've now, and what happens is I encode that image into quartz crystal glass, and then it has a copper wrap. So the idea is some geometry. When I learned this art, it was called Pleiadian healing discs. And they said the most important thing is the geometry that you feature inside of the quartz crystal glass that, use sacred geometry, whether it's the golden mean or, Metatron's cube or, which is cool. That's the Meta One logo. I dig that. So on and so forth. It was the geometry. But what had happened was I was guided by the Anunnaki to understand that the seven-pointed star was 432 related. And what happened was I made a whole disc set. I'm looking at one to show you. Like this is an E note. And it has a 10-pointed star. Every note you find out has a specific geometry that's attached to it. So I tracked down every cymatic image of every note tuned properly, and I'm making right now the first set. But in the past, the problem is, by the way, is I'm doing all this over again because the scientist, I've been trying to get the rights, and he is not allowing me. So I've just made a set for myself, and I'm going to redo the images myself. But anyhow, when I
just wanted to point out too, I don't want to hold that thought, but just for the audience that may not understand this, sound is structure. Sound is light. Everything that you see, every form has a sound. Sound was what created the universe in the first place. It created the structure, which created the light. So when you're talking about sound and frequency, it is the very basic, and it also creates geometry, just like you're saying. We are literally talking about the building block of the universe.
Yeah, I'd like to say the universe is being sung into existence.
Yes.
Everything's spinning. If anything's spinning, there's frequency involved. There's waveform. But what had happened was during this, this is going to jump in the deep end, but I was brought into the NSA remote viewers / reverse engineering division. And at this time, I didn't know what he was saying, to me, but he said, in this course of study that we're bringing you into, you're going to learn about cosmic harmonious frequencies. And he said, you're going to learn that to create matter, you need specific frequencies. And not only specific frequencies, he said that you need specific frequencies and specific combinations. And he said that I'd also be learning about the true Pythagorean scale, which truly just means A equals 432. He said from which all of creation comes from is the Pythagorean scale, not the solfeggio, by the way, which is very interesting. I dig anyone working with frequency, but as it turns out, I'll just tell you, because this ended up working with NASA, as you said, and the biophysicist told me, what's interesting is only when the frequency resolves to 9, whether like 4 plus 3 plus 2 equals 9, this lower octave 216, 2 plus 1 plus 6 is 9. It's lower octave 108, 1 plus 8 is 9, 54, 9, 27, 9. Unless it equals 9, no extra photonic light energy was seen coming through the frequency into our realm. I thought that was fascinating, because then I went to my guitar and I worked a grid of every note on a guitar. And because obviously there's a lot more notes than A, there's B, there's C, there's D, there's E. What I realized is if you're tuned properly to 432 is your A note, every note on the guitar neck, no matter where you are, no matter what octave you're playing at, they all resolve to 9. So that struck me as curious, just because of what this leader of the NSA group, his name was A.R. Borden, he said you needed specific notes and specific combination. So the thought occurred to me, well, if they're all bringing through energy, by the way, I don't want to jump around too much, but I asked the NASA scientists, I said, well, wait a minute. If there was no energy, but now there's energy, extra energy, where is that extra energy coming from? Is it from our sun? Is it from our planets? And she said, no, it's coming from another dimension. That really toasted my noodle, because I was like, wow, I've never had to ask myself, what's it mean to be drinking water that contains energy from another dimension, But what had happened was, during this course of study, I didn't realize it at the time, but the Anunnaki began using crop circles as kind of like a chalkboard in the classroom, that when they would show me principles of geometry and how it relates to cosmic harmonious frequencies, I would ask a question, and it would show up the next day in a crop circle. By the way, the one you held up was the 7-pointed star. And can you show that disc?
I'm doing that now.
Right on. What had happened is, they had been guiding me into the 7-pointed star. Yeah. That one I showed you. Well, anyhow, that was part of the classroom. And that the night before that crop circle showed up in the UK, they would not let me sleep. They're like, you got to get up and you need to divide a circle by 7. I'm like, well, okay, and pretty weird. I had to go to my wife, honey, I got to get up and do some math. She's like, all right, you freak. So I go to the calculator and I'm like, 360, because obviously a circle is 360, divided by 7 is 51.428. I was like, well, okay, what of it, And then they showed me my third eye, a circle, and they said, obviously, if you divide a circle by 7, you get 51.428. 51.428 is an arc 1/7 away around a circle. So I was like, well, okay. Well, what they did, show me the circle. They took their Anunnaki astral highlighter and went around the circle in my third eye, and they let the rest of the circle fall away. So there was this arc like this, just this part. And then they mirrored it and brought it up to itself, and it made an eye shape. And I thought, well, okay. And they said, Michael, that's the Ark of the Covenant. It was never an ARK, it was an ARC. And it makes sense now, because, the Ark of the Covenant was always said to lead us to new energy systems that were aligned with the universe. And I said, wow, because they had already been guiding me into the 7-pointed star to such a degree that I said, I would love to see that 7-pointed star done with the Ark of the Covenant arcs. Now take a look at that disc again. That showed up the next day. It's a real good example of the communication. Yeah, what's interesting is they show you half the arc and then the pyramid shape. That's very important because that 51.428 longitude line on planet Earth runs through the UK, and it's called St. Michael and Mary's ley line. And also to get back to 51.428, remind me to get back to that because I want to finish. What had happened was I asked them to, they had told me when I met them in the flesh, they said, we were once known as the Anunnaki in your past. The reason they met me was I was on the History Channel, and the History Channel had a Harvard professor. His name was David Systrom. And during the show for the UFO hunters, they had my blood tested in Boston. And the result was I didn't have normal human blood. And I know what that sounds like. It sounds crazy, but actually I asked him, what are you talking about? And he said, what do you think unknown means? He's actually kind of mean about it. I was like, well, I don't know, should I be worried? Do I have a blood disorder? And he said, well, again, what do you think unknown means? We don't know what to tell you. And so right after that, I was met by the Anunnaki, and they proved to me that they were not from here because they became faceless in front of me. This isn't channeling or anything. This is like me talking to you, And they said, we were once known in your past as the Anunnaki, and you were once known in your past as Ea Inki, the water bearer. Now I get that water bearer thing, At that time, it made no sense to me whatsoever. But so after that, I put out a request to them in a meditative ceremony. And I said, listen, you got to know it. First of all, at this time, there was no ancient aliens on TV. I didn't know what an Anunnaki even was. I surely didn't know who Ea Inki was. I surely didn't know what a water bearer is. So I said, if you are who you say you are, encode the name Ea Inki into a crop circle. And I take notice of crop circles. I am a student of the subject. I can tell you, I will notice, and I will, that'll be my confirmation that you are who you say you are, and that I am who you say I am. And that was late 2008, early 2009. Well, I waited and waited, and the crop circle never showed up, but it did eventually show up in 2011. And this is that crop circle.
Nice.
And
nice. And it has...
See those rows around the 7-pointed star? Mm-hmm. This is a small disc, by the way, so it's probably harder to see. But that's a 7-pointed star in the middle, and then it has rows of like dot, dot, empty dot, 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 dot. You'll see every row is different. What they told me is, Michael, that's ASCII binary code. And when you decode it, it says Ea space Inki. So I was really excited with this. They did what I asked them to do, is encode the name Ea Inki into a crop circle. But they did it in a very cool way because, right when I asked them to do that, my next thought was, what a silly request. Can you imagine a big crop circle with like Inki written in cursive? Looks like a big birthday cake. I'm like, well, what the hell is that going to prove? Then my next thought was, figure out a cool way to do it. So what had happened was I made this crop circle into a disc. And then I went on to making the 7 notes of the musical scale, which I showed you, the E note. And obviously there's 7 notes. So the last note I made was the A note, made from the 27 hertz. And when I made it, I'm sitting there looking at the 7-pointed star in that crop circle. And well, you need to know too, when I asked them to encode the name Ea Inki into a crop circle, I got kind of cocky. I said, while you're at it, encode it with something only I would be able to decode. And just thought, well, they got their work cut out for them. I don't know what that will be. But when I made the A note of, this 7-note musical disc set, I'm staring at the 7-pointed star in the middle of it. And I wish I had that disc here with me, but I don't. And I'm thinking, why does that look so familiar? I couldn't put, like, I just made this disc, you know what I mean? And it wasn't coming to me why that 7-pointed star looks so familiar to me. And so I'm trying to think of where have I seen that before? And I'm sitting there for about 5 minutes and nothing came. So finally this voice is like, just let it go. You know, if you're not, don't push it, you know? So I just put the disc down, and then I looked over and I seen the crop circle disc and I seen the 7-pointed star. Man, tears flowed. They did encode it with something only I would be able to decode.
That's so beautiful. A lot of these crop circles are on your YouTube channel as well, right? Michael Lee Hill YouTube channel.
Yes, and I'm going to be making some new content to even show these more. But I can tell people, go and type in crop circle drone footage, because a real cool thing is happening in the UK, and that is people are bringing drones now. And when you see actually a 4K drone footage, when it flies over top of a crop circle, you get to realize that this isn't two old dudes with planks of wood, you know, rope to their feet or whatever. But
yeah, they're very detailed.
What had happened was, I then, because of the importance of 432, I hired the scientists from Cymatics to image my note. And it was really interesting. First of all, they contacted me and said, you know, we've used this technology to image everything from dolphin noises to baby noises to every frequency known to man, but we've never seen that kind of complexity or dimensionality before. And they said, but we've never imaged an electric rock guitar amp. It's like, yes, rock magic. They said it's actually because good rock guitar amps are made with tubes. It's one of the only things that still uses tube technology, but that gives you that Eddie Van Halen, Jimi Hendrix crunch, you know?
Yeah.
And they think something that's doing to a frequency with that tube is what created that. But then they asked me, they said, we've never seen anything like this. Do we have your permission to release? Because the image is just one still frame of those 20 seconds. They said, can we make an experimental video of the full 20 seconds of seeing that image being created in real time? And it, you know, I say, absolutely. So that is live on cimascope.com. And it's also, I've taken that video and put it on my YouTube channel, which is just Michael Lee Hill, if anyone wants to see it. But what happened then, to fast forward to the testing of it, I was asked by Richard Hoagland. Do you know who Richard is?
I do.
Right on. He was a hero of mine growing up, because when I needed answers, Spirit led me to his work. And so to get contacted by him and him going, you know, I'd love to have you on my show, 3-hour radio show. I was like, oh, I've met some rock stars and stuff. I think I was more nervous to meet Richard Hoagland. But he had me on a show and he goes, Michael, you know, we know your story sounds batshit crazy to a lot of people, but the numbers, he said NASA, because he was NASA's science advisor, liaison to the media through the 70s and 80s. And he was Walter Cronkite's science advisor. And he's also the guy that released that there's a face on Mars, which people might be familiar with that. But during our interview, he's like, Michael, NASA's been looking into how energy flows multidimensionally for a very long time. And it just so happens that now they know, and I know, that your numbers are right on the money. So I would like to arrange for a NASA biophysicist, consulting biophysicist, to look into your disk creations. And, you know, that's a weird thing, because there's a month and a half when I sent it to him, and I had a hint that it was doing something weird to water, because I have a friend who owns a maple water business. They find out that they tap the bottom of maple trees when they make syrup, and this water comes out, and farmers would just use it as like scrap water to wash their hands in and everything. Well, no, man, when water gets filtered through a whole maple tree, it's like the purest water that you can possibly even put into your, but I was going to say put into your body, but you know what? Spring water is no slouch. To get fresh water that has been untouched by human thought forms, which we can get into, Dr. Emoto. It's very important. Spring water is the way if you have to drink anything. But anyhow, so I had a month and a half of waiting after I sent her. The disc that you held up is exactly what I sent to her. And man, I got to say, it's hard to stop that voice of negative internal dialogue. It's like, oh, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Don't get too excited. And then this other voice are going, are you kidding me? You think all this is just coincidence, So I had to battle myself with, the best I could do is just try to let it go and not even think about it and drive myself crazy, But sure enough, the results are kind of historic. They said what they found was that disc will restructure water in a way that they've never even seen before in any of their testing. They said, yeah, you can restructure water in a lot of ways, which is you can spin it, you can put it through magnetic fields, you can vortex it. But in each of those methods, yeah, energy comes back into the water, but the periphery of the light pattern gets wider and more diffuse. And they said for the first time ever with this 432 technology, what they've seen is, yeah, the energy came back into the water, but then the longer they held the glass of water on top of the disc, the periphery of the light pattern got smaller, more focused, not wider, and much brighter than anything that they've ever seen before. She said it's kind of like if you held a magnifying glass and you're trying to burn a leaf, and as you bring the magnifying glass up, the periphery gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and still until it has enough energy that it combusts. She said that's what they were seeing with this 432 technology, that in her own words, it was turning the photonic light energy within the droplet of water into a laser beam of energy. And what I can tell you, what the Anunnaki have communicated to me is, imagine when your cells have super energetic fuel, because we get most of our energy, our prana, our chi, our life force in our body at a cellular level comes through water. We are 70 to 90% water, depending on your age. And so what they're telling me is once you start drinking 432 water, the health benefits are pretty much unbelievable. And, by the way, I've started to talk about it more because I know I'm supposed to, but at the beginning, I really didn't like to get into health stuff. I'm like, these are very powerful energy devices, or it's a nice paperweight, whatever you want to do with it. And, but now it's almost like I'm having to say, I don't understand it, but it's having profound health, effects. I've been getting emails from people that use my discs to charge water, and they said like two or three emails now is people who either had psoriasis or eczema. Is that what it's called? It's kind of like psoriasis.
Skin irritation.
Yeah, and they said that they've been battling it their whole entire lives and have got all kinds of prescriptions from doctors, and nothing helped their psoriasis or eczema. And they said they started drinking 432 water, and their psoriasis and eczema has vanished. And I was like, wow, that's really fascinating. But now it makes sense, because they said when we're drinking municipal tap water, we're truly, we're drinking dead water. We've killed it with chlorine and with fluoride and sending it down miles of pipes and making it take right turns and whatnot. We've killed our drinking water. So really, when people get ill, when we get into our 60s and 70s, it's not really what we think. Our bodies are being dehydrated, because on a cellular level, our water does not have the energy to replenish our human form. So,
and it doesn't have enough light either. And that's what the 432
yes.
disc does, is it adds light, because we are photonic light, and it's adding photonic light.
You know what? I showed you that. Let me show your audience. Let me see if I can find it here. There it is. So NASA, they took 6 photographs from it's kind of like Curian photography, if people are familiar, which records photonic light energy, but it's even more specified to record photonic light energy within water. And so at control for California municipal tap water. Like you said, the photograph just shows a little tiny pinprick of light. Like when you look up in the night sky, pick the smallest little pinprick of light. That's how much photonic light energy was left in municipal tap water. And then what happened was, then after 15 minutes of sitting on one of my discs, this is the result. It looks like a supernova, in there.
You can see
I
that.
got 6 photographs of that too, and it's beautiful to look at because you can tell it's alive. Every photograph is a little bit different. So this thing's like a sun, and that's within the droplet of water. And
it's amazing how much light it created with just 15 minutes.
Yeah, but then they said as she said, Michael, I don't think, because they did 6 photographs at 15 minutes, and then they did 6 more photographs with the water being on a disc for a half hour. And they did 6 more photographs at the disc being on for 50 minutes. And she said, I don't think it's done doing its thing, even at 50 minutes. She said the longer they left the water on the disc, the brighter it was becoming and the more focused the light periphery was becoming. So she said, I would recommend putting a glass of water on your disc at night before you go to sleep and just let it sit overnight, and then have it just be your ritual that when you get up, drink that glass of water as your like every morning. And then I just refill mine. Matter of fact, I got a water bottle. I got some of Richard's water bottles, and I love them. I highly, highly recommend them. But imagine, I just have some coasters in my refrigerator now, and I just always have a bottle of, first of all, our water here in Florida is coming up from 150 feet below the surface from a spring aquifer. And so we're very blessed in that manner. There's no chlorine, there's no fluoride. It's truly a fountain of youth water, and it's all through Florida, by the way. But so that's the water that comes up. I put it right in a water bottle, and then it goes into the fridge and sits on a 432 coaster. And I can tell you the effects. Even my skin, I'm 53, and it's like all the wrinkles have gone.
You look 29, Michael.
Oh, bless you. But
so I also wanted to point out, this is the number of the Great Pyramid in Egypt. It is tuned to 432.
You know what I found out is because I became friends with Graham Hancock, and he told me 432 is so significant and encoded into our ancient cultures and calendars and whatnot. But he said, if you take the height of the pyramid and the width of the pyramid in feet, actually, the actual dimensions and how we measure stuff, and you take those and you multiply it by 43,200, 432, you get the accurate dimensions of planet Earth, which is mind-blowing. But the Anunnaki were telling me, you need to look into the side angle because it's very important in all of this. So I went to Graham, and he's got the side angle of the pyramid at 51.86. And, most people have it between 8.5 and 51.68 to 6.5. He's got it at 51.86. And as we know, we've thought the pyramid has 4 sides. That's what everyone thinks. That's a pyramidal shape. But what they found is, very recently, they now know it has 8 sides. And those 8 sides, so obviously there's more than one side angle. And those 8 sides only show themselves twice a year, on the spring equinox and fall equinox, kind of like at Chichen Itza, when the snake comes down, and only twice a year on, I think that was the equinox, don't quote me on that, but then you can see a snake come down, and it's only on those 2 days. Well, only on 2 days can you see that the pyramid truly has 8 sides. So I knew the common side angle is 51.86, according to Graham Hancock, and I trust him. But this voice is like, Michael, again, my higher self talks to me a lot. It's usually a smart ass though, but anyhow, it's like, Michael, now subtract your 51.428 from 51.86. I'm like, okay. And it's 432. That hurts my head. Like, how did they have even the ability to incorporate that Ark of the Covenant into the building of the pyramid, that it would only reveal itself twice a year? Mind blowing. But then the next thing that they were pointing me to realize is, a lot of people ask, why do crop circles show up in the UK? Mostly only, they have showed up in other places, but 98% of them, it's in the UK. And they follow along what's known as St. Michael and Mary's ley line. That ley line runs through Avebury. It runs through Stonehenge, et cetera, et cetera. And
doesn't it even go to the Easter Island on the other side?
Does it?
Mm-hmm. I think it does.
Oh my goodness, I did not know that. Thank you. Because the deal is, they asked me, you need to pay attention to the longitude that St. Michael ley line is on, and the longitude line is 51.428. It is a 7-pointed star. And I started to think, how Richard Hoagland has the Merkaba, the Star of David. And if you, in your third eye, picture a circle and then put that Star of David in the middle of it, where those tetrahedrons, where the pyramid shape touches the circle on the outside, north and south, is always 19.5. The reason this is important is on every planet, the largest upwelling of energy is along that 19.5 latitude line. And like on Earth, it's a volcano. On other planets, it's like the Great Storm of Jupiter, is it? Every single planet, the largest upwelling dimensionally, it's like when energy comes from another higher dimension, enters our third dimension, there's an upwelling of energy at that 19.5 ley line. But what I'm understanding now, that's physical. That's like an upwelling of physical energy in our realm. What the 51.428 line is showing you is where to, it's like acupuncture of putting information into the field of this planet for consciousness. And that's going to be 51.428. And it's so important then, because you understand, well, the 7-pointed star is related to 432. So when you start using these things, using Tibetan singing bowl, like I can tell you, this is perfectly tuned to 432. So first of all, what did the Tibetan monks know? But check this out. So right now, even as we talk, if we meditated, this is going to align us with 51.428. Because it is that. So if you want your prayers to go cosmically, because all other ley lines are Earth-centric, only the 51.428 line is the galactic connection. So I think it's showing us, and plus not only that, when we do prayer and say you come into a circle to have multiple people combining their mental energy for a common goal, really, you should be 51.428, distance, 1/7 away around a circle from each other. And by the way, I can't show you now because it's just, I don't know how to do it. But they show me too how, everyone that does energy work, they know, first of all, it's the palm chakra that you use. It's not the fingertip chakras. But then you can feel the energy between the hands and the palm chakras. And then you can grow it, you can feel it, because there's more energy probably between my hands right now than this is the empty stuff. This is the stuff that's 99.9999% empty space, and we just feel it as physical because that's the holographic reality of what we're living in. But this is filled with energy. So once you create a ball of energy, it's your energy. You can use it for whatever you want. But what they showed me is, imagine if you're standing in a circle with 7 people, and on my left, I'm doing this, but the person standing next to me puts their hand under mine like this, then their hand. So we're go around in a circle and we all create energy balls. And then with common goal, intention, then once you're done, you can all take it and all give it into the ground, and it'll go through the whole planet and help who needs help and what you're using it for. So there's a lot of learning that is coming for humanity in how to work with these things. And even Native American First Nations have a lot of this wisdom. Like, I see the world's on fire right now, you know, literally. And if they would just bring back Native American First Nation
wisdom, yes,
yes, and control burning. You know, it happened in California. They kicked the Indians out of the land, and then all of a sudden they had all these forest fire issues. So they had to go and bring the Indian culture back to show them how to control burn. And that part of California is now does not burn. Native American Indians like, man, we could have helped you with this, you know, and so much wisdom to share. And that's a big part of your saying the Star Knowledge Conference and how it went live in Canada just now.
And that's one thing that Meta One does too, is we support the Indian nations.
I know, you know what, that's one of the biggest things me and Robert talked about, and I thanked him profusely because I'm very involved in that movement as well, because some of my land, chief corn planter of the Seneca is who our forefathers, I'm talking George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, they all went to chief corn planter to learn this experiment in democracy of we the people, you know, and chief corn planter's wisdom was so important to George Washington. They became best friends, and George Washington was just blown away by how much wisdom chief corn planter had to share. And so the first treaty, people can look this up, it's the Corn Planter Tract. And the Corn Planter Tract gave the Seneca the land of Salamanca in New York. And people need to know Salamanca is Niagara Falls. People don't know that's a nation within a nation. It's not part of the United States. When you travel to Niagara Falls, you're going to go and pass a sign that says you've now left the United States. You now are on Seneca land, and that there's a toll that's being charged for you to travel across these lands that's being paid on your behalf from the from the United States government. And in Pennsylvania, there was 1,500 acres, and that's where Corn Planter, his settlement of Seneca, actually lived. And that's where George Washington went and met him. Well, it turns out that so before I go further with this, because of the History Channel testing and the DNA work and everything, I found out I am an heir of Chief Corn Planter in DNA. I think, you know what, our culture, just like Tibetans, believe in reincarnation. So in the Western culture, I can say, you know what, that's my bloodline. But between us here, I'll tell you, I was Chief Corn Planter. That was another incarnation of myself as a Seneca chief. And that's the elders of the Native American Indian tribes have recognized me as peacemaker, as Chief Corn Planter. And that's why I've been brought into the Star Knowledge movement as a mound builder. The mound builder, they said, chosen messenger to bring Star Knowledge now into the world. And into Florida specifically, because we can get into that. They just found a Mayan step pyramid here in Florida. Let's imagine that.
I think there's pyramids in a lot of places we would never expect. I mean, they're all over China. There's the mound builders were everywhere. But I wanted to get into the rest of what you're doing, just to kind of let people know how important this is. You know, did you produce the documentary Unlocking the Magnificence of 369?
Yes. Well, yes and no. I was contacted by a guy named Gary Light, and he said, I love your research and the blog of all your research. Would you allow me to make a video out of your research? I said, absolutely, and just left it at that. And next thing I know, he's created two versions of it, one with music and one without. And he did a fantastic job. I'm very, very proud of that release of information. And what happened, though, even shocked all of us, is it just went totally viral. That each version of that is over 1.2 million views now. So not only that, the whole videos went viral totally. And so it's really weird,
It's
My
fantastic because it helps people understand what we're talking about. This is Nikola Tesla's work. This is your
Yeah.
work. And there's also a new course study at the University of Ottawa in
Mhm.
Canada that is it's a whole new program studying frequency 369, matter, photonic light.
Well, it's more okay. It is a Native American Indian program to share Native American Indian contact with star beings, which does include cosmic harmonious frequencies. It's all intertwined. But truly, because to me, it's like, well, what is star knowledge? What is star knowledge? And my definition is it's the knowledge of light and sound and how light and sound create our physically perceived reality. But it's a little bit even so it's the knowledge of light and sound and how it creates physical reality, but it's also the knowledge on how to become rainbow, because that's something that we've missed that in our culture of there's a science here that how do you know what trial and tribulation that you're going through in your life? What chakra is it highlighting? If you're having a problem of speaking and, speaking your truth and you feel like you're being shut up, well, that's a throat chakra symptom. If you're having a problem keeping a roof over your head, that's a root chakra system. Did I say root before? It'd be throat. But anyhow, so
It's
working with
consciousness, health, and coming into balance as well.
yes. So imagine working with a company like HeartMath, who has biofeedback mechanisms, like, almost like you're being hooked up to a lie detector, but it's not. It's measuring your heart rate and other things. So you can get an instant feedback on, then, like, say you are experiencing trial and tribulation, then you can use HeartMath to use visualization and meditation techniques, and you can physically see the result of your heart rate slowing and your breathing returning to normal.
A
And
stress response.
yeah, so that's what star knowledge is so much for humanity, for the future. And so people know what happened was Chief Golden Light Eagle, who's been on Ancient Aliens many times, and he's the spiritual leader and chief of the Lakota of the Sioux, a specific faction. He got the message from Spirit that it was time for them to share their wisdom they had gained from thousands of years of contact with star beings with humanity. And it took until late 1990s, because the truth of the matter is, if they spoke it before that, they'd be killed. It wasn't until 1968, I believe, the Freedom of Religion Act with Jimmy Carter brought forth. Up until that time, that's not that long ago, if they even spoke their ancient language or did a ghost dance, they'd be ripped apart from their families and put into jail. So the Star Knowledge conferences began in the late 1990s. Now, in 2019, I'd been brought into the fold as the Mound Builder ambassador, Nephilim ambassador. That was the first thing Chief said when he seen me. He said, "Oh, you're from the Great Lakes area?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Oh, you're one of those Atlanteans, heavy duty." And he turned around and walked away. I was like, what? But in 2019, I was in Estes Park with the Star Knowledge family doing a conference. And this guy comes up to me after my presentation, said, "We really love what you said. We're here filming a show that's going to air in Canada. And would you be interested?" I said, "Yeah, of course." So I filmed it, and I like to say, man, I feel like the Forrest Gump of all this stuff. Sometimes I have no idea what I'm actually doing and what it's a part of. But here, they were filming for the Canadian Public Corporation, which is like Canada's PBS, but it's actually bigger over there. It's like, and that there was going to be a University of Ottawa program that was going to start teaching and these this wisdom. And he said, because I became friends with the head producer of the show, because at that conference we just sat next to each other and just started talking, and he seemed like a long lost friend, and we really hit it off. So we've been communicating via the phone. And first of all, he said, "Michael, what do you think we should call this movement?" I said, "Well, you met us at a Star Knowledge conference." So it's called the Star Knowledge Symposium. So what I can tell you is just go to Google and type in University of Ottawa Star Knowledge, and you'll see the college course. But it's not just a course. It's going to be but you got to know COVID threw some wrenches into the gear work. But as soon as all this lifts with COVID, they're going to be bringing us from this side of the Great Lakes to the University of Ottawa to meet with other elders and to teach star knowledge at every equinox and solstice. And so people will be able to come to these massive like powwows and meet and learn from Indigenous elders and grandmothers. People don't know it's the grandmothers that are truly in charge of everything. But I'm going to share something with you I don't share very often, because these people are the Nephilim. And I've never seen I've never met any human that showed me something. I've met a few that showed me some pretty weird things, but one of the grandmothers pulled up in her minivan and said, "Will you go for a ride with me?" And this is at a ceremony, a Native American Indian ceremony. And so I get in her minivan, and she goes, "I want to teach you about the migration of the Holy Grail Sangreal bloodline into North America that became the mound builders." And she goes, "You know what, though? It'd be really nice to have a map of the United States to show you on." And she went over her side of the minivan window, and a map of the United States appeared out of nowhere. I've never it was all red, and it was like a holographic computer map. Looked like it was from Star Wars or something. And it was this big in front of her. And she looked at me, she goes, "I know you can see it." Yep, it's right there. There's no not seeing it. And she proceeded to use that map of the United States to show me how the Atlantean bloodline entered Florida, about halfway down the middle of Florida on the left-hand side. I now know it's Crystal River, Florida. Like I said, Crystal River, they just found a 76-foot long Mayan step pyramid, because you need to know this bloodline first went to the Mayan culture in the Yucatan, taught them the Mayan calendar, taught them pyramid building. They even say, if you ask them, the Mayans are like, "Oh, some big white dude showed up, Cody Quetzal," or what, and taught them all this stuff. But sooner or later, when all the human flesh and blood sacrifice ceremony aspects started to set in, the Atlanteans were like, "Man, we don't think they're getting it. Let's get the hell out of Dodge." Well, they left the Yucatan and they went to what happens to be the middle of Florida now. And so they set up camp there. That's where the newly found Mayan step pyramid is. It's big too. It's about 76 feet long on one side. And obviously the rest of the sides are pretty much the same. But then after being there a while, they went to the top of Florida on the left-hand side, and she drew 3 candy canes. She came up on this and, made a candy cane. Then in the middle and made a candy cane, and over here and made a candy cane. And she explained that, like, on the right candy cane, she said, first of all, these 3 truly became the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota of the what's called the Sioux tribes now. But like on the third candy cane, that goes up around the Great Lakes area. So that contains the Cherokee and the Iroquois. In the middle, you got Navajo, all these other Blackfoot. They're all on those three candy canes. She said, truly, they would move to a new part of the continent. And once they got too big, they never would overtax the land. They lived in harmony with Mother Nature. And so they would set up camp, and some of them would stay and some of them would go forward on and create the rest of the candy cane. But still this day, I talked to her not too long ago. I said, Grandmother, I just want you to know I'm aware that you brought up a map of the United States from nowhere. I'm not going to ask you how you did it, because I don't think I would understand anyhow. But I just want you to know it didn't just fly over my head and I didn't realize what happened. They're not, that's something. That's all I got to say. That I'm like, oh, okay. But it's cool too, man. There's a lot of people have come into the Star Knowledge family, like Drumvalo, Melchizedek, and Bob Dean. And, and Chief told me, he said, a lot of these people, the Star Knowledge was made for people that at that point their voices weren't being heard. And so it was made to give those people a platform that their messages would be heard. And so a lot of people that people are going to know about, like James Gillian, and it's like they funneled through the Star Knowledge Conference and then almost by spirit was given the stamp of approval to bring that knowledge out into the rest of the world. But I can tell you, he worked with the Dalai Lama, and the Dalai Lama said this wisdom that they have is the closest to their Buddhist understandings. So the Dalai Lama wanted to come to Star Knowledge conferences and start speaking, and Chief turned him down. And Chief said, if the Dalai Lama showed up, no one else is even going to be important. The thing's going to be swamped with people, but it's going to be like, it'll overshadow the whole reason that these things even exist. So he turned down the Dalai Lama. I was like, wow, I feel very fortunate now that you allowed me to speak. It's like, so I get a call.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, humanity has so much to learn. We have so much to learn about ourselves, history, the way things, really are. We haven't been taught correctly in general. It's almost like we have to slowly unschool.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, all this information, as far as I'm concerned, it leads to more happiness. Mm-hmm. Understanding, for me, it's brought magic back into my life. And, it's a miracle. Everything's a miracle that we're even here. We're, having a divine experience in this physical meat suit. That's a miracle. It doesn't matter even whether you're homeless or whatever. We're all blessed beyond measure to be here. But to finish the Star Knowledge thing, I got a call from the producer and he said, Michael, I don't even really think you understand what you're a part of. That the show you filmed, which aired yesterday, actually, in Canada, and it's called Star Beings, and it's Native American Indian wisdom and info of Star Beings. It's being shown at the University of Ottawa to 300 people. It's like a black tie event, and so what they want to do in the future is continue the Star Knowledge program by bringing me and a team, including the Mitchell Hedges Crystal Skull, to the 51.428 that ley line, that latitude line. No, it's not latitude, it's longitude, that runs through not only the UK and St. Michael's ley line and Mary's ley line, but it runs through Canada. And now I just found out it's Easter Island too. Imagine that. That's too cool. But so in the very near future, I'll be bringing a team to visit all the sacred sites and monuments and whatnot through the UK, through the St. Michael ley line. By the way, it's very interesting. Over there, that 51.428 line that we've been talking about, that's called St. Michael's ley line. Well, we now know 51.428 is forever tied to a 7-pointed star. So now you got crop circles showing up along a 7-pointed star ley line right next to the ley line. It's like, I think that answers why crop circles are showing up in that very specific area, because they just dot that 51.428 longitude line on planet Earth. It's just like crop circle, crop circle, crop circle, crop circle. But also it goes through Canada. So I'll be working with the Canadian government to bring a team to go to all those ancient sites with Bill Hammond and Mitchell Hedges Crystal Skull, plus Indigenous Indian elders, to go to these sites and use music, use 432 bass music and ceremony. I think it's going to be historic, because I think it's part of disclosure that's happening now with people
The
might
awakening.
be aware. Every time you turn on TV, they're talking about like the Pentagon is now going, well, guess what? We're not alone. Haha. Sorry about that. Years of making people look foolish.
So you bring up the crystal skull, and you have the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. There's 13 skulls.
Yes.
So give a brief rundown on the skulls, just to let everyone know. And is your trip, is it open to anyone who wants to join? Is it exclusive?
I think it would be cool to do like a tour, like open it up and come with us. That would be fantastic. It's too early right now to tell. I would love it. But the crystal skulls, obviously I've known about them, my whole life, Indiana Jones. And I think the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull is actually mentioned in Indiana Jones. And the whole movie, The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, it was based on the Mitchell Hedges skull, but they couldn't use that likeliness of it due to legality. So they made it look more alien with the elongated skull or whatnot. But Chief Golden Light Eagle said this skull, well, let me get back to how I became involved with the skull. And its previous owner now is Bill Hammond. Mitchell Hedges was the actual explorer who found it in the early 1900s at a Aztec site, I believe. And Bill Hammond he was bringing it to Serpent Mound events that grandmother Terry Rivera, she has a crystal shop and even more, but it's right there next to Serpent Mound. And she's a Serpent Mound grandmother. So Bill Hammond went, and pretty much he said, my name just kept coming up over and over and over. And so the skull started reaching out to Bill Hammond going, hey, Michael Lee Hill, hey, you need to contact Michael Lee Hill. So Bill Hammond's like, dude, I've never seen anything like this, but this skull is crying out for you, like I've never experienced. So he said, would you be up to, meeting? I said, well, actually, I'm bringing Chief Golden Light Eagle and stuff. It was the equinox of 2020, actually. And I said, you're welcome to join us and come, because we're going to be doing ceremony to unlock this ancient earthwork that's unknown to mankind right now. And it's really something, because first of all, this earthwork takes over a mile to walk around it. It's probably one of the largest mound sites on this planet. And I was contacted by a guy from the Smithsonian saying, I really dig your work of, tracing the mound builders back to East Lake, Ohio, but are you aware there's still an intact earthwork? Well, that's my hometown, no one there knows. Matter of fact, I've now worked with the East Lake Historical Society and the mayor of East Lake. The mayor was like, oh, I just thought that was an old garbage dump. I'm like, oh, how sad. They did for a while. They used it as a garbage dump. They'd go and take piles of rock and whatnot that they were going to be using in road construction and just pile shit on top of it, And so I brought the Mitchell Hedges skull there to unlock this for humanity. And pretty profound too, because, Bill let some people that had come do a session, I guess you'd call it, with the skull and be in its presence and feel the energy and spend a little time with it. And so I sat down in front of it really for the first time, and the skull clearly in my head goes, Michael, you need touch your forehead to mine, third eye to third eye. Well, that's not allowed. You know, Bill Hammond is you don't touch the skull. No one gets, like, you can put your hands right on the outside edges of it, do ceremony, feel the energy, but you're not allowed to touch it. So that was a little sticky thing. I go, dude, I know this is awkward, but it's telling me that I need to go forehead to forehead with it. And he said, yeah, I know, you have permission. So I did. And boy, it's profound, let me tell you. But Chief Golden Light Eagle said that particular skull is over 200,000 years old. And it did go to Hewlett Packard because they look into crystal, you know, and because they use it, you know, quartz crystals used in everything, computers, you know, watches, whatever. So they put it under the microscope and they could find no tool marks. I guess eventually with some, they found a little time, but it's not anything that we would think of as being a tool mark. And they said the skull shouldn't exist. It's not made with any kind of process that we know of. The only thing, if there's no tool marks, that means someone sat there and polished it into that shape. And quartz crystal is one of the hardest substances on the planet. You know, even to drill it, you would need a diamond tip drill. So I got to share this with you because during that ceremony at the unknown, it's the Hall of Records, because the guy from the Smithsonian told me how to find it. Sure enough, it was there. He said he was part of an excavation from the Smithsonian that removed some artifacts in the 70s. And those artifacts are now sitting in a museum, a Native American Indian First Nation museum in Eastlake. And some of the artifacts from that dig tie that location to ancient Sumer. It relates that location to the Anunnaki. And in particular, one of the artifacts contain what's called the Morning Star, which is that four-pointed compass symbol. So what happened was that at the ancient ceremony that Chief Golden Light Eagle brought me into, which is called a Sundance. I did not Sundance, but I was there and I witnessed and seen what was going on. But Chief's brother came out, who was also a chief, and he had that four-pointed star. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the same symbol that's on that artifact from Eastlake, Ohio, because I didn't know what it was. And I asked him, I said, Chief, what is that symbol? And he said, oh, that's known as the Morning Star. And so then I found out the Morning Star represents, most people say Venus, because Venus is the first ray of light into the darkness. It is the last celestial object visible in the night sky before morning comes. So it's like the bringer of light, you know. But then you find out when you go back in time, the Mayans had a symbol that they called the Lamat. And sometimes they did it the same, which was a four-pointed star version. But also they had almost like a cross. Picture the Templar cross. That's the Mayan Lamat. And Lamat to them, and that's actually a little bit more, I believe, accurate, because the Venus bringer of light is real surface level. The Mayans knew that signified the actual time in our calendar that we would exit the age of Pisces and enter the age of Aquarius. It would be the return of star brothers and sisters. It would mark almost like the phoenix, you know, death, rebirth, a death of this old dark age that we've been going through and that nonsense into a new golden age. And that truly, that's what it meant to the Mayans. And the Native American Indians truly understand what it is. It's that. So what had happened was, through my research into crop circles, they had showed me that they put the old Morning Star, I don't want to say old, but it's a four-pointed version, into a crop circle. And then recently they used the exact same design with like an eclipse moon symbol. That's actually ancient Sumer as well. But now instead of a four-pointed version, it was a seven-pointed version. I'm like, oh my God, this is like the evolution of the morning star is now the 7-pointed version. So I just get a call from the producer of this new Crystal Skull documentary that's being done for Gaia. And I've already shared all my images. I've worked very hard to get teams of people to be able to extract the crop circle information, to create things like this. This is a crop circle, by the way. This is important because see those symbols around it?
I recognize that.
Those symbols around it are called Baktuns. And in the Mayan calendar, the Baktun is a long count for the Mayan calendar. And each one of those is 144,000 days. And the whole thing with the Mayan calendar, it ended with the 13th Baktun, and everyone flipped out. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. There's no 14th Baktun. No, it's the 14th Baktun is truly the first Baktun of the age of Aquarius. So the deal is they marked in this crop circle the actual transition point between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius, because if you take those 14 Baktuns that are 144,000 days long, you get 2016000000000000. It's 2016, because instantly, I started to realize all 432 based math and physics resolved to 9. 4 plus 3 plus 2 is 9. It's lower octave, 216, 9. 108, 9. 54, 9. Each one of those, to find the accurate lower octave of any frequency, you just divide by 2. Simple. So I'm sitting there watching the movie 2012, and I think I'm having cellular panic attack. They very accurately depicted in that movie truly what a pole shift is, and it's horrifying. So all of a sudden I'm looking at it, I'm going, wait a minute. I know, like, even in the Anunnaki gave us our system of timekeeping. Take a look at how many seconds is in 12 hours. They're 43,200. Our whole system of timekeeping is based on 432. And that's the same number, by the way, Graham Hancock came up with. If you take 43,200 and multiply it by the height and the length of the pyramid, you get the true accurate dimensions of planet Earth. So I know that their system of timekeeping and calendars is 432 based. I'm watching the movie 2012 and I'm like, wait a minute, it doesn't resolve to 9. It resolves to 5. And I'm like, that can't be the end of the calendar. That's not how they kept time. So even at that point, I just went forward in time and I'm like, it's 2016. 2016 is the next date that resolves to 9. And I'm like, thank you, for telling me. But then, this crop circle showed up in 2018, I believe. And it was confirmation because it gives the date of 2016. So we're just babies out of the gate of the age of Aquarius, and all the things that needed to be revealed are being revealed, because nothing can be healed until people understand why there's huge changes to the system needed. But I can also tell you, the Anunnaki communicated to me, this is all leading to mankind becoming a galactic society and having access to galactic civilizations that have gotten past this point of war and our kind of thought forms that cause those kind of, fear and doubt and nonsense. But they said humanity will not be brought into a galactic society through any form of governance that we know of. We're not going to be working with Biden. We're not going to be working with Trump, and we're not going to be Putin. No, those, they're going to be working with people that understand new life physics and true how things work with light and sound. And those are cosmic. And, but, even I don't want to miss this with 432, because people are like, well, maybe it's kind of pie in the sky kind of stuff. But, when we're talking about octaves of 432, you find out the sun is 8,640 miles across. Well, that's 432 times 2. If you look at the moon, it's 2,160 feet across, I believe, the circumference. And that's one octave below 432. And that's why when the moon comes in front of the sun, you get a perfect total eclipse, because they're truly perfect octaves of one another. So it was Richard Hoagland too. He said, you do realize that these 432 numbers are precessional cycle numbers. I said, no, I didn't. Actually, at that time, I really didn't even know what the precessional cycle was. But sure enough, and people don't, if they don't know what the precessional cycle is, the Earth is off axis. And
isn't it by 4.32 degrees?
You know what? I don't know.
I think it is.
But it makes sense. If you took a pointer straight out into space and the Earth is rotating, it doesn't hold a spot. There is a 26,920 year cycle, and it's like a wobble. It's like if you spin a top, and then when it slows down, it starts wobbling, right? Well, that wobble makes a circular pattern, and that's where we get our astrology symbols. Because if you were in the middle and looked out at the outer rim of that 26,920 year cycle, you would see, Pisces, you'd see Aquarius. So that really toasted my noodle, because it's kind of like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? How is it that this wobble, first of all, how did they even encode precessional cycle numbers into ancient cultures? Because it's all over the place. It's encoded these numbers of 108 and 54, and they're in Giza, they're in Angkor Wat in Cambodia, they're in Chichen Itza. They're all over the place. How did they know about a precessional cycle? Who was around for 27,000 years approximately to know that this cycle even existed? So that's a big mystery to me still. But then it hit me, not only why is the sun the 432 base numbers? I'm finding out because everything's created from light. And light is 432 based, meaning everyone knows about E equals mc squared. And that's our whole science is based on it. But now quantum scientists are telling us everything is both particle and wave simultaneously. So E equals energy, M equals mass, and C is the speed of light squared. Well, where's the wave component? It's not there, but it's hidden. The wave component of that is when you come to the knowledge, then a 432 squared is C. 432 times 432 is the speed of light. Within 1% accuracy, I would say that's accurate. Personally, like the accurate speed. First of all, I find it very rare that anything in the universe is just 186,000 miles an hour. Yeah, they just right on the money. No, but anyhow, it's probably close to that because of the speed of light, the pure speed of light within not being put through a physical universe,
or slow down from dimension.
Yeah, that 432 times 432 becomes C. It becomes the speed of light squared times mass equals energy. So think about this, what I'm doing. M equaling mass, in the way I'm using it, M is photons. See, like 432 base frequencies are the only frequencies that are truly harmonics of light, and sound births light. And so 432 base frequency squared becomes the speed of light, C squared times mass equals energy. So it's really an interesting time for mankind for this information.
I think it's something that we are collectively going to be learning. It's what we're moving into, and it's a way to free ourselves and to become sovereign beings, and maybe even, just like you said, heal ourselves and become part of the larger community that exists around us.
Yes, indeed. It's weird. I think we're built by design to heal ourselves. It's just we've been dumbed down, and people, we've been programmed, I hate to say it, to find yourself separate from nature and Mother Nature. And that's what allows all of this nonsense.
It's time to wind down our conversation.
It's
I could
been
talk to you
wonderful.
forever.
It's very nice talking with you, and it's so nice to talk to someone as enlightened as yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And to find out more about Michael Lee Hill and what he is up to, if you're interested in finding out about his discs, taking a look at them, maybe purchasing some for yourself in your home, where would they find that?
MichaelLeeHill.net. And I've really tried. People are like, these pendants carry the frequency as well. And people are like, why aren't you charging hundreds of dollars for these? And I'm like, that's not the point, man. I want to just heal, so I've tried to keep the price on all this stuff down, but still be able to cover, these are lengthy, especially the crystal disc creations, they take me a while, but my necklaces are $40. Simple, stupid, easy. And we talked about the two different chakra color schemes. That's what's going on. One is red to purple and the other one's purple to red. I just let the universe decide which way it goes on. But yeah, please, and
your YouTube channel also has the crop circles in drone. You can really take a look, and they're deeper than I thought. And they're very slow. They're very detailed. You can really see them. And you also have some other interviews on there that you've done with other podcasters, that are very interesting.
The Richard Hoagland one is on there, and became just a dear friend with Jimmy Black as well. And he's a guitarist as well. So
I like his show, Fade to Black.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's cool. Cool. Yeah. Check it out. Especially check out my blog, because that's where my favorite part of my website is, to be able to share what I've learned from those that are not from here. So check it out. And thank you for having me.
You are welcome. And to find out more about Meta One Coin, the freedom movement, and all of that, become a member of Meta One, please visit metaone.io or Universal Law. There's number 8, Universal Law, number 8.io. Please like, share, and comment on this podcast if you like it. And until next time, live freely and live abundantly.